I'm here at Oakham School, not obviously to learn, but I've come back to look at a project that we did maybe about 8-10 years ago. When we arrived, this was just a straight rectangle with grass in the middle. And we thought it would be nice to create something a bit more special here, something perhaps to take the emphasis away from all the buildings that stretch around the courtyard. So I came up with the idea of a quadripartite vault. Grand name, but this is basically the vaulting that you see in many undercrofts or churches, and it's quadripartite because it's got 4 separate spaces joined together with the arches or the ribs that run over it. But instead of making it from stone or timber, which they often are, I've made it with a metal framework, and then we've actually planted the insides with hornbeam, and then the hornbeams have been clipped, but not very recently, to make it form a very strong structural shape. Of course, you can do a much smaller version of this. You can just have one archway, or you could do a pergola, or you could do one vault. But this, because it's a big scale school, I've really stretched it out and made it quite large. Metal is a wonderful product to use for something like this, a wonderful material. Timber is often used for pergolas and arches, but the advantage with metal is it's very light. You can make it form any shape whatsoever, and so it doesn't have so much presence as timber. Timber is always big and chunky, whereas metal can be light and airy, and it allows you to plant in it, and then the plant dominates instead of the timber, which I think it does pretty much here. Hornbeam seemed to be the obvious plant to put inside, although we could have used many different types of hedging plant, beech, yew, but yew would have been fabulous, but it would have taken so long to form and connect the ribs over the top, which I see now the hornbeam has done. Underneath the vaulting, we've got the Breeden gravel, which is the gravel which is bound because it's got lots of clay fines in it. And when you lay it, you water it and then you roll it, and the clay fines come to the top and they sort of set it. But then we've picked up the shape of the undercroft going over the top, or the vaulting over the top, with the brick paving laid stretcher bond. The idea was that the space underneath the vaulting you'd have chairs and tables and people would congregate and gather. And I think in the summer it probably is used like that, but in the autumn it's a wee bit chilly now. Around the edge we've put these large wooden benches on each corner, planted around a holly tree so children can gather here. And then running around the sides I've got the multi-stem cornice with box plinths around them. And then the planting around the edges is quite a simpler mix of hydrangeas. I've got things like the white anemones, which are in flower now, the Canada iridiflora, which is my favourite canna. It doesn't really look like a canna, and it's hardy, so it lives out all year round, and it's formed a quite nice sizable clump. And I've also got the herbaceous clematis, the lovely blue climbing herbaceous clematis, which is on the metal obelisks out of the same acid etched metalwork as the vaulting. The lawn underneath is quite different. Well, I haven't used this type of lawn before, and it's called a grass-free lawn, although looking at it now I see some grass has crept in. But the idea of these lawns is that you have them totally without any grass at all. So you choose plants that are quite low, that flower. So you can see here we've got some harebells, I've got some self-heal, there's a bit of clover, I've seen some wild strawberries, daisies, violas, a whole mix of things. These were developed by Lionel Smith, who came up with the idea at Reading University. And he did research on this, and he developed the whole strategy, how you do it, what are the best plants. Lionel's now been working on them for some time. He's written a book on them. And he initially started this whole concept of grass-free lawns because he went on holiday with his parents. He was about 8 or 9, and they came back after 2 or 3 weeks, and his father opened the car door, looked at the lawn and said, "My God, there's weeds in the lawn, I must get the mower out." And Lionel piped up from the back seat and said, "I think it looks really nice. There's daisies, there's dandelions. I think it looks better than it's ever looked in its life." And that was what actually made him think about the whole idea of grass-free lawns. And I think they've definitely got merit, although I don't think I'm showing you the best example here.
But play your cards right, and you could have a lawn like this within 2 years, with a bit of legwork.
The way you establish them is quite different from a normal lawn. You get the whole area weed-free, so maybe use glyphosate or whatever method you want to use. And then you sow seed trays with about 20 to 25 different species in it because you want a good mix, and you don't know which ones are going to do really well and you don't know which ones aren't going to do so well. So you have 1 species per seed tray, and you might have 10 seed trays of the same plant. Some we did by propagation with cuttings, and then you plant them out when all the seeds in the trays have established and form nice little plants, and you just plant them on the area a bit like you would put a turf in. You just plonk the whole seed tray without the tray onto the soil and firm it in. And then when they get to a certain height, maybe about 200 mil high, we cut them with a lawnmower for the first time on its highest height. So the advantages of having a grass-free lawn are really several-fold. First of all, the mowing. You only mow it maybe 8 times a year, whereas if you have a normal lawn, you'll be mowing it every week during the growing season, which is probably from April, May till about October. So that's a lot of time you actually spent pushing the mower. The other advantage is because you've got mixed species and you've got a higher sward, you get a lot more invertebrate life. So you get many more insects, you'll get butterflies, you get moths, you get bees. This will be absolutely buzzing with wildlife. And you've got colour all year round. I've seen grass-free lawns which have a mass of flower even in December. Also, you can actually walk on it. I mean, you probably wouldn't want to play a game of rugby on it every day of the year, but it will take quite heavy walking. And in some places, in London parks, they've actually put little signs saying, "Please walk on the grass." People see plants, they see it a bit longer and they just think, "Ooh, must keep off it." But actually, you can lie on them, you can sit on them, and you can walk on them. I had a chat with the gardener about the maintenance of this. Having looked after this for several years now, he has found that things creep in, and I can see he's got grasses creeping in, he's got nettles creeping in, he's got some dandelions and a creeping thistle particularly, and ideally these will be hand weeded out. I think this has got out of control a bit, and we've got more of these weeds in some places than we have the actual plants. I think you've got to be prepared to watch it and take a real interest in it. And I think maybe in an area where they've got massive gardens, hundreds of acres of gardens all around the school, maybe a little place like this is perhaps just a bit too intricate for them to maintain. But I think in a garden situation, when you've got someone watching over it, I think it could be more successful. And I do feel that I might actually try a bit of this at home, because I think it would be nice to do it and just to look after it with a slightly higher maintenance level and just see what happens.